welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk a little bit about negotiation. And the question is, how do you negotiate the best deal for your client? So one point is that you're looking for a deal. I'll talk about that in a minute. But also let's start with the definition, which is the fiduciary. So what is a fiduciary? If you represent the buyer or the seller, you have a fiduciary, a legal responsibility to get that seller the best possible price and terms, or the buyer the best possible price and terms. So for the buyer, I'll do the least price, and the seller the highest price. So the question really is, how do you get these two together in a deal, right? So maybe we can talk about some examples. One example I have is just the way you phrase something. I've gotten a seller $50,000 more from just saying one thing, one sentence, a certain way. Now, remind you that both sides, you owe them fair and honest dealing. So you can't say something that's not correct. That's important. But you can negotiate terms and to best benefit one or the other. So to get to a deal, let me give you an example that I just had happen fairly recently. We're negotiating a larger property. We got to some counteroffers back and forth. I represent the seller, this other agent's representing the buyer. We were about several $100,000 from coming to a deal. And I asked the buyer's agent, and I kept open communications with the buyer's agent for the entire time, which I think is very important, because if you're not talking and be able to keep your cool, if you lose your temper during a deal, that deal's done. So you have to be in the middle. You have to really talk to both sides. And what I did is we were again several $100,000 apart. I went back to the other side and said, look, would it help you if I gave you my client's best and final offer? So typically in a counteroffer, I don't recommend coming back with a best and final unless you're kind of at a stopping point where you're not talking anymore. At this point, we were for a few days not in contract. We were out of a counteroffer time frame, right? So this person said, yes, I would like that. So I said, okay, great. Let me talk to my seller and see if I can get authorization to give that to you. And so I did that and came back to the buyer's agent and gave him the number, and we came to a deal, which was really the lowest that my seller would sell. And it was, again, the buyer came up, highest price that the buyer was going to. So we came to a deal. And does that mean it's the best price for the buyer or the seller? Well, it's a deal somewhere in the middle where both parties can agree and feel good about it. And that's really, for an experienced agent, that's where the value comes in, is to be able to structure a deal where some other unexperienced agents might get caught into, this, that, or the other thing and not be able to get people to that deal. That was just one example. I'll give you another example on the buyer side. Sometimes, there's multiple offers on properties, right? And so, my record for changing an offer for the buyer is actually 7 times. So obviously, well, what does that mean? Well, there's ways that you can resubmit your offer, right? And so I have a whole strategy about that. And long story short, basically is that you can't change the offer and don't really want to pay too much more than the next buyer, right? So if you change it in little increments, finally get the seller's attention, that's how you might come to a deal on the buy side. Opposed to, submitting an offer in the blind, which could be, competitive with all the other offers. It could be way more than the other offers. It could be way less than the other offers. You don't know, right? And then you just come back to your buyer and say, well, hey, we submitted it and we just didn't get it. No feedback, right? So I think if you have an agent that can help with the deal, help understand how many offers there are, talk to the other listing agent, again, if you represent the buyer now and you're talking to another agent, and try to find out where that has to sort of trade, and it consult your buyer and ask them if they want to go to that level or not. Obviously looking at all the comps and looking at all of their options, right? And other properties on the market that are available. So again, there's, an option there. So, I think that those are helpful things to understand that you're getting to a deal and the agents typically are putting these deals together. So that's a little bit about negotiating. My, 30 plus years of experience in Silicon Valley, selling properties. And those are some examples. Hopefully they're helpful to you. So thank you so much for watching. That's really all I had to say about negotiating today. I've been in the business 30 years, a lot of experience selling in Silicon Valley. So if you like the video, please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks so much.